Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, August the 9th. If you would, this time, please rise for our invocation. So thank you for coming tonight, handling that for us, and we'll follow with the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you that you have brought each of us here tonight. We thank you for each person that is here, whether they be an elected official or a citizen of this community. Lord, we thank you that you have put the business before us and that you give wisdom to those making decisions. Pray, Father, that everything that is done tonight will glorify and honor you, that this will be a productive time, that this will be a time that will serve for the benefit of this community. And we thank you for every person's willingness to serve in the way they serve tonight. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Can you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first on the agenda, gentlemen, we have a public hearing, special exception for SPX 2022 Tax 06, Hardin Properties LLC of Northport, Florida. Registered agent Mr. Robert M. Hardin has requested Upson County permit a temporary residence in an RV during the construction of their home at 5050 Burkett Road. The property is 27.4 acres more or less, and tax parcel is 021076 Charlie. With that, is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, just aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Public hearing is now open. We have no one signed up for comments for this public hearing. So with that, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor with an aye? Aye. Public hearing is now closed. Mr. Curry.
Yes, sir. This is one of your traditional requests. Hardin Properties, it's a family out of Florida. That's where they currently are tonight. They were not in town, so they could not attend. The property does not lie within a flood zone. As a matter of fact, this is a very high property, steep driveway. AR zoning all around, very heavily wooded section of the county. We have review standards that are required by state law and our own ordinances by which such requests must be reviewed by the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Commissioners. In your staff report, you have my evaluation against those. Again, these are basically an impact-based set of criteria. As you can imagine, an RV sitting there is going to have very few impacts while the house is being built. In this particular case, the RV is not there yet. They have not brought it down yet. And in this case, there's not even a visual impact because of how wooded this particular area is. The special development standards related to this are mostly centered around the water and sanitary sewer supply. In this case, the septic system as well as the potable water are in place so that when they do bring their RV up, they will be able to hook into it. Staff recommends approval. This is consistent with the evaluation criteria. This is a normal request, something that we do routinely. It is also temporary and will not be inhabited after the house is complete. That's the Planning Commission meeting of July 11th. The Planning Commission also considered this request and by a vote of 5-0 recommended approval to you with the traditional recommendation of a 12-month period for them to finish construction of the house and then end living in the home. This is the aerial photograph of the lot. This is one of the cleared areas that potentially could house the RV. This is another site that's closer to the construction of the house. It's a couple of areas where they could put the RV. It's the home itself. looking back at the entrance. And this is a road that goes, obviously you see it's a very deep property, and this is the road that goes up into the northern reaches of the lot. And they have their well. That concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, you have staff report. Is there a motion on the on this special exception?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve with recommendation from Planning Commission.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes, thank you. All right, next on the agenda, public comments. So as always, I'll remind everyone, when I call your name, if you would, please come up here. You can pick either side. Just want to make sure the folks that are watching YouTube land can see you, and please speak up so they can hear you. So if I call your name, please come up, state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes, and please address your comments to the board through the chair. So, Ms. Prather. Good to see you again.
You too.
Okay.
Good evening. Betty Prather, 1309 Spring Street. I know it appears that I am alone in this request for debris pickup because you see me out front all the time. So my neighbors, my homeowner neighbors, signed petitions stating that they support and want the same thing. These homeowners who signed those petitions and I presented them to you last month. Now in the petition, we ask that you negotiate with GFL for a fair price, and GFL, if they did not want to give us a fair price, then get a vendor who will. I understand that the county manager had a discussion with GFL, and the results look like this. GFL wants to charge the Lincoln Park homeowners $80, yet the city homeowners only pay $50. At first I thought it was a misprint, but then later on when I talked with the commissioner, he confirmed that those numbers were correct. So I talked with my neighbors and they said they can't afford that and are not willing to pay $80 to the same company, GFL, for the same type service, while our counterparts in the city are only paying $50. They asked me what I thought about it, and I said, I agree. I am not willing to pay that either. And they said, well, why can't we pay the same thing? I couldn't answer that because I have the same question. Therefore, we're requesting that you do a comparative cost analysis with other companies and present a fair and equitable quote to us. Now, in talking with my commissioner, he said that he's going to schedule a town hall meeting and he's going to do what I call a straw poll vote. He's going to ask whoever is there, homeowners, just somebody off the street that came in to see what's going on or whatever, and present this $80 cost to them. And whatever they say, then we'll just see what happens. I said no. The Lincoln Park homeowners signed petitions. The homeowners would be the one to pay that cost. And to disrespect us that way is unacceptable. All we're asking you to do is the right thing. Just do the right thing and we'll be satisfied. Again, to ask us to pay $80, Lincoln Park homeowners pay $80 and the city owners only pay $50, is unfair, and it is insulting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Kevin Prather. How we doing?
John.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So, of course, I'm sure you guys are aware of why I'm here, speaking on.
Well, if you would, sir, your address for the record.
734 Stevens Street. I'm here on behalf of the citizens of Lincoln Park. They basically wanted to ask you guys a couple of things. First things first, they said we are not requesting a state-of-the-art facility that exceeds the highest value property in the Lincoln Park area, but a safe and decent space for our community to have. So they basically asked, were there other bids on the gym? And what were the other bids for repair if there were? If there were no other bids, is this standard operating procedure was another question they had. What is the cost for repairs to make it safe and operational as it was used for the summer program? And the last question that they had was, how soon can we expect the town hall? And that was all I had.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. No other comments? No one signed up for comments anyway. So moving along, next on the agenda, gentlemen, is the consent agenda. You have in your consent the approval of the July 26, 2022 regular meeting minutes and approval of the Three Rivers Agency on Aging agreement. Is there a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. Moving along, new business. Discussion and consideration of a voting delegate for the 2022 Legislative Leadership Conference. I guess, you want me to take that?
Who's attending?
Well, there you go. We drew straws, and guess who lost? No, I had planned on attending. I need to go get some continuing ed done, and so I don't know that anybody else is planning on going at this point. So with that, I'll throw my name in the hat. Is there a motion for me to serve as the voting delegate?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. All right. Moving along. Review and acceptance of the financials for the period ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Salter, would you like to?
Sure, absolutely.
Any highlights?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some few highlights. It's a very brief document, as you'll notice on the, and these are printed from both sides. We've gone through some of these significant events that have occurred in the first 6 months of our fiscal year. One, broadband grant, which everybody knows was approved. Things are moving in a positive direction. Highline, our final budget to the state was approved, so really there's nothing from that aspect holding us back. So as they, Highline proceeds on their work, then we can start submitting expenditures to the state for reimbursement from the ARPA grant. We received $23.4 million in net proceeds from the 2022 series bonds that were issued. That money obviously will be used towards the construction of the new judicial center. We have received our first schematic budget that was presented to the staff on July 27th. The cupola was obviously finished during the first 6 months of the year at a cost of $1.65 million, which was under budget. The total budget for that, the cost of the cupola was $1.7 million. Capital expenditures to date of $1.1 million. 900,000 of that was funded directly from SPLOST. $1.5 million of 2016 SPLOST is already encumbered right now for road resurfacing and vehicle replacements. We had in the bank as of June 30, $5 million of SPOS proceeds.
That's the
Restoration-
just so for the record, that's the 2016 splosh, which ended in June, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Restoration of a chunky covered bridge, that was completed at a cost of $127,000. That was funded by 2016 SPOS. We found a restoration firm to restore Andrews Chapel at least to serviceable condition. Bolster up the flooring, put a new rooftop on it for $72,000. That also would be funded from SPOS. Thus far, Judicial Center Engineering Program is kind of nearing the end of that phase. We've, as of June 30, a total of $199,000 has been spent on that particular project, which is being funded from the bond proceeds. If you look on the next page, is sort of a summary of, is really a summary of the general fund. Of course, we account for county M&O and unincorporated services within the general fund. On the left is the budget column. To the right is where we are to date. Always with revenues, revenues are not earned evenly or received evenly over the year. The majority of our revenues for the county come in from taxation, and most of those will come rolling in late November and December. So that applies to both county M&O and unincorporated services. The majority of the unincorporated services revenue obviously is from tax and also from insurance premium tax, which we don't receive from the state until October. On the expense side, we're a little below budget, which is always a good thing, but the primary reason for that is staffing. We're short manpower in a number of departments throughout the county, and that is a primary reason that we're below budget, so to speak, on expenditures, primary factor. The pie charts down below, in the next, as of September 30, I'll update these to include actual, but nothing has changed. If you look at it, this is a good picture in my opinion. You have budget by function, and then the lower left corner, budget by class. So you can see that public safety comprises 41% of our total county budget, which is a big chunk. General government is 24%. And in terms of what we're spending our money on, if you look, and I know this is a little bit difficult on how I printed it out, but 69% of our total budget goes toward personnel services, which is your compensation and benefits. To me, that's always a good picture to keep in mind when you're looking at our budget and what we spend and where our money goes, or the taxpayers' money goes. Next page, quickly. This is a summary on page 3 of our significant special revenue funds. We have 3 large or significant special revenue funds, one being 911, the other being the Joint Projects Fund, and the last being Squirrel Blood. A little low on the 911 fund side in terms of actual expenditures compared to budget. There and again, that's biggest part of that is they're still absent. The former department manager took a job elsewhere last year, so they're still down, I think, 1 or 2 positions, but one significant key position there. So that's kind of why you're seeing a little, it should be roughly 50% at this time of the year. The other special revenue funds are where we expect to see them. So good thing is we're not exceeding budget on expenditures. Component units. Component units are also part of joint projects, and there's 3. I won't go into the definition of component unit, but recreation and IDA require funding from both the city and the county for their operations. Airport is fully self-sufficient. Airport recreation is down. That's personnel. At June 30, they were down 4 full-time and 3 part-time positions. The airport is down, and the reason there is because within their budget, their operating budget, if you will, is the capital expenditure amount of $1.1 million, which is going to be funded by GDOT grants. But so it makes the expenditures look lower than they really are because of that $1.1 million. From other operations, they're on track. And lastly, our proprietary funds are doing well, page 4. Just slightly low when you look at percent to date. I've got the revenues and expenditures for both water services and waste billing. We're a little low on the expenditure side for waste billing, and that has to do with some issues that Transwaste had with their billing, which is being caught up, but they had missed a month or two of being able to bill us, so that will catch up when we get to the 9-month period in September 30. And that really is it. Does the commission has any questions for me?
Yeah. It's not Transwaste anymore, is it?
GFL.
GFL, sorry. Correct. You're right. I need to, thank you.
I mean, it's been Veolia, then it was this, and now they keep getting eat up.
Okay. All right, so it says review and acceptance. I mean, you want us to vote on it to accept?
Please.
Okay, so gentlemen, you have staff recommendation to accept the financials that have been presented. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the executive summary
To accept the financials?
to accept the financials.
Okay. So I have a motion to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a motion made and seconded to accept the financials for the period ending 30 June. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay. Moving right along here. I'm out of whack here. Let me get my paperwork in order. Okay. Gentlemen, next on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of the settlement agreement regarding David A. Chastain versus Upson County. Upson County Chairman Norman Allen and Upson County Board of Assessors. You have before you the settlement agreement. I think everybody's had a chance to review it. Mr. English, you have anything you'd like to add to it? Or?
No, is it your intent to read the settlement agreement or?
What's your recommendation? You want to?
I think it'd be prudent to read it and then just understand that there are not going to be any comments on it. It is what it is, and it's
Right.
a matter of public record. So
Okay. So you want it read in its entirety?
I think that'd be the best thing to do.
Yeah, we're going to be here a minute.
That's all right.
All right. Okay. So gentlemen, based on the recommendation of our county attorney, I'll take a minute to read this. This settlement agreement, release of claims and covenant not to sue, entered into this day in December of 2021 by and among plaintiff David A. Chastain and Norman Allen individually in his capacity as chairman of the Board of Commissioners, the Upson County Board of Tax Assessors, and the Upson County, Georgia, and collectively referred to as the parties. Whereas Chastain is the elected tax commissioner of Upson County, and whereas Norman Allen is the chairman of the Upson County Board of Commissioners, and whereas Upson County Board of Tax Assessors, among other functions, manage the information for the real property parcels in Upson County, Georgia, using the Beacon and QPublicNet.net system, a web-based GIS and data reporting software program developed by Schneider Geospatial. And whereas a dispute arose related to Chastain's desire to shield his private information from viewing by the general public on the QPublic system managed by the Board of Tax Assessors, and whereas Chastain filed suit against the defendants in an action currently pending in the Superior Court of Upson County, David A. Chastain versus Norman Allen, the Upson County Board of Tax Assessors in Upson County, Georgia, CAFN 20V 0238 lawsuit, and whereas defendant, the Board of Tax Assessors has adopted a public record suppression policy to address judicial orders or requests by individuals, law enforcement, or a state, county, or city official to suppress information normally available to the public on the Q Public system, and whereas for the best interest of their constituents, the citizens of Upson County, and all members of the public, the parties now desire to fully and finally resolve all disputes between them and to avoid future disputes as far as possible. Now therefore, in consideration of mutual promises and agreements hereinafter set forth, and other good and valuable consideration, receipt and sufficiency of which is hereby acknowledged, the parties agree as follows. Number 1, payments. Except as specifically provided in the next sentence, there will be no payments to, among, or by any party related to this settlement agreement. Brad A. Hutchins of the Weissman Law Firm, Chastain's attorney of record in this matter, shall be paid the attorney's fees accrued through the execution of this settlement agreement pursuant to the court order setting attorney's fees rate for plaintiffs canceled, entered October the 5th of 2021, upon submission of a signed invoice showing the authorized rate and the time spent by Hutchins on Chastain's behalf. Other considerations. So long as Chastain follows the requirements of the Board of Tax Assessors' public record suppression policy during the time he holds the office of Tax Commissioner, Chastain's private information will remain unavailable to the general public. Number 3, Chastain's release of claims. For and in consideration of the promises and agreements set forth herein, Chastain, on behalf of himself, his attorneys, representatives, heirs, successors, and assigns, hereby releases, acquits, and forever discharges the defendants, their present and former officers, directors, employees, agents, insurers, contractors, affiliates, attorneys, representatives, heirs, successors, and assigns, and related persons of and from all claims, demands, actions, causes of action, suits, damages, lawsuits, attorney's fees, wherever payable to Brad A. Hutchins or any other attorney, and expenses of any kind of every nature whatsoever, known and unknown, up to and including the execution of this settlement agreement. Further, Chastain hereby releases, waives, settles, and forever discharges all civil claims, demands, contractual obligations, liens, or causes of action, whether based on tort, contract, law, equity, or other theory of recovery, which relate to or in any way connected to the lawsuit or the facts alleged herein, within 5 days of Chairman Allen complying with the provisions of Section 5, Chastain will obtain the dismissal with prejudice of the lawsuit. Chastain agrees and covenants on behalf of himself, his attorneys, representatives, heirs, successors, and assigns that he releases, waives, forever discharges, and will not sue for any claim, charge, complaint, demand, dispute, or liability of any kind that relates to or involves released parties or released parties' relationship with Chastain, except those claims that may arise from this settlement agreement. Chastain knowingly and voluntarily releases, discharge, and convince not to sue for any and all claims he has, had, or may have against the released parties. This release and covenant also would include any and all claims regardless of whether the claims or the facts underlying such claims are known or unknown, anticipated or unanticipated. By executing this release, Chastain expresses his intention to fully, finally, and forever settle and release all claims that do exist, may exist, or previously have existed against the released parties. Chastain releases, discharges, and convince not to sue shall be and remain in effect as a full and complete release and discharge of and covenant with regard to such matters, notwithstanding discovery by him of the existence of any additional or different claims of or facts relative to the same. Whew. Indemnity. Chastain warrants that he has not assigned, nor does he intend to assign, any claims, demands, rights, or causes of action that he may have or may have had against any parties released herein. Chastain hereby agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the released parties against, without limitation, any and all claims and causes of action, including but not limited to cost and attorney's fees, arising out of any such transfer or assignment. Public statement at a regular meeting of the Upson County Board of Commissioners within 90 days of the execution of this agreement. Chairman Allen will read the following during the chairman's comments. Now, assuming we're going to vote on this, I will read that, so there's really no need to read it again. Unless if we vote not to accept this agreement, I'll go back and read it. Okay. An applicable law, number 6, applicable law venue. This instrument shall be governed by and interpreted in accordance with the laws of the state of Georgia. The parties hereby waive all defenses related to personal jurisdiction, venue, and forum, non-convenes in any action involving this settlement agreement brought in the courts of the state of Georgia located in Upson County, Georgia. Number 7, the construction of the agreement. Each party hereto acknowledges that it has participated in the negotiations of this settlement agreement, and no provision, condition, term, or covenant of this agreement shall be construed against or interpreted to the disadvantage of any party hereto by any court or other governmental or judicial authority by reason of such party having or being deemed to have structured, dictated, or drafted such provisions. Each party acknowledges and agrees that they have at all times had access to an attorney in negotiations of the terms and in the preparation and execution of this settlement agreement, and that the parties have had an opportunity to review, analyze this settlement agreement for a sufficient period of time prior to the execution and delivery hereof. The parties further acknowledge and agree that no representation and warranties have been made or relied upon pertaining to the subject matter of this settlement agreement other than those that are set forth in this settlement agreement, and that all the terms of this settlement agreement were negotiated at arm's length, and this settlement agreement was prepared and executed without fraud, duress, undue influence, or coercion of any kind exerted by any of the parties upon the others, and that the execution and delivery of this settlement agreement is free and voluntary act of the parties. Number 8, release of known and unknown claims. This settlement agreement covers both claims that Chastain knows about and those that he does not know about. Chastain understands the significance of the release of unknown claims, and Chastain understands his respective waiver of the statutory protection against the release of unknown claims. Number 9, severability. Whenever possible, each provision of this settlement agreement shall be interpreted in such a manner as to be valid under applicable law. However, in any provision of this settlement agreement, if any provision of this settlement agreement shall be invalidated or prohibited for any reason, any such provision shall be ineffective only to the extent that any such provision or invalidation and the remainder of any such provision and the remaining provisions of this settlement agreement shall remain valid and enforceable. Number 10, entire agreement. This settlement agreement constitutes the entire and sole understanding of the parties hereto, notwithstanding any prior oral or written statements, instructions, agreements, representations, or other communications. This settlement agreement shall not be amended, modified, or abrogated except upon written agreement executed by the party or those parties whose rights or obligations are being amended, modified, or abrogated. Number 11, binding nature of the settlement agreement. This settlement agreement and the covenants, representation, warranties, and releases contained herein shall inure to the benefit of and be binding upon the parties of each of their successors, heirs, assigns, agents, affiliates, parents, subsidiaries, and representatives. Number 12, no admission of wrongdoing, liability. The parties agree that by extending and complying with the terms of this settlement agreement, they shall not be deemed and it shall not be construed or inferred at any time for any purpose that either party has made an admission of any liability or of any wrongful or unlawful conduct of any kind. It is expressly understood that this settlement agreement is a compromise of the disputed claims or claims and that this settlement agreement shall not be construed as or deemed to be evidence of admission or confession of any fault or liability whatsoever on any part of any of the parties. Number 13, counterparts. This settlement agreement may be executed in multiple counterparts, each of which shall be deemed an original, but all of which shall be taken together to constitute one and the same settlement agreement. And then the signature block. So, thanks much. So, gentlemen, is anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing other than this agreement, again, is public record, and it is what it says. There's no need for further comment. It's available
Yes, sir.
to look at.
Okay. So, it would be, all right. Well, gentlemen, you've had time to digest all of this, and at this point, I'll call for a motion on the acceptance of this settlement agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the settlement agreement that you just read.
So I have a motion to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a motion to accept the settlement agreement. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, we'll move along. All right. This next one, while they are three separate items under new business for us, they're all sort of intertwined because they're all part of negotiations between the county and the city on lost. And so I'll let me read these items. Discussion and consideration. I'm sorry, we just did that one. Discussion and possible consideration on an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement dated 22 July 2014, which memorializes the funding of the county road department known as the road contract. Discussion and possible consideration of a first amendment to the master agreement between Upson County, Georgia, and the city of Thomaston dated the 20th of August 2013, which memorializes the funding of joint services known as the Joint Projects Agreement. And finally, the discussion and possible consideration to the local option sales tax loss distribution certificate with the following distribution schedule. Upson 59.25%, city of Thomaston 39.21%, and the city of Yatesville 1.54%. So I just wanted to introduce all those because, we're probably going to bounce around a little bit as we discuss these. And with that, I'm going to pass the ball to our county manager to kind of walk us through some of this.
Mr. Chairman, as you rightly mentioned, the reason we're mentioning all three at once, and I'm sure we'll probably have a number of comments. Just backing up, this board had appointed a negotiating team to meet with the city in regards to the renewal of this loss certificate. So our local option sales tax is due to expire at the end of the year. We entered into negotiations with a team that was the county manager, our finance director, yourself, the chairman, Commissioner Ellington, and Pascal as county attorney. We met a few times with our counterparts, and through those discussions, we tentatively agreed to the following items. One was to change the end date of our joint projects agreement so that it would sunset by December 31 of this calendar year. Additionally, we have a contract with the city that dates back to 2013 about how we tax for roads, incorporated versus unincorporated. And included in that prior contract, there was a annual payment from the city of $150,000 to the county every year for their payment of the portion of city residents' use of county roads. So in exchange for those two, we tentatively agreed in that meeting that we would reset the share of the local option sales tax to the distribution that you just read. So I think it was absolutely fair to say that they are kind of tied together, because as both negotiating teams had tentatively agreed and were going to go present to the full boards when we left the meeting, that it was sort of an all or nothing encompassing deal. So what it basically does is eliminates that sort of annual payment to us from the city for that portion of roads, but then we get a corresponding higher amount of the sales tax proceeds to make up for the difference. And of course, the city's main concern about our lost negotiations was that they had some changes that they wanted to make to the joint projects, and since they saw it, loss can be very service delivery heavy or very closely related, they thought that changing that date and forcing us to go ahead and get this done before our next budget cycle would be prudent. So that was kind of the that's the position they negotiated from in exchange for our higher percentage, essentially. So that's kind of the summary of why these are tied together. I will add that when we left the second meeting, we had explained to them that we were going to do some further research about best practices for how to achieve tax equity when it comes to the provision of county road systems, and myself and other members of the staff did some additional analysis and came up with a few formulas that I presented independently to the county manager for his review.
City manager.
Sorry, city manager, I apologize. But so some additional work was done after our last meeting, but it's apparent that I think that for now the city just wants to stick with what we left with at our last gathering. So the board would have the option today to discuss it and potentially adopt it, or if the board wants to instruct staff and or the team that they appointed to go back and go back to the drawing board, essentially. So we'd essentially just be looking for board direction as to where we wanted to go from here. I will add, I think Commissioner Watson was in attendance at the city's last meeting, and they also brought these three items up. I don't think they voted to approve, but they did a sort of ceremonial approval, saying that they were presented the information from the city manager and essentially didn't have any issues moving forward. So that's kind of where we are now. The one thing I will say, it will be a heavy lift to try to negotiate a joint project agreement before the end of the year. But I would say if that's where we're headed, we should probably get started.
So, and you want to go ahead and add to that? I mean,
well, I think we had a couple of meetings, and I think they were productive. Obviously the city's got some wants, and we have wants, and it's all about being fair to the county, and the city's all about being fair for the city. I mean, but ultimately we obviously we went in at a higher distribution split. I think we started out at initial out of the box was 65. I still feel like we could be there, but in an effort to negotiate, in any negotiation that you give and you take, and the city is a vital part of Upson County. So we negotiated in good faith, and we got down to the split that was discussed. The roads issue was kind of a caveat of that. You give us this, you can get that. I specifically, and I know the chairman specifically stated that, we're not here to make those decisions. We got to take this back to the full board. And we realize this is the first opportunity as a group that we really had an opportunity to discuss this. you know, joint projects is, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts to that. It's gonna take, you know, and they wanted to tie the whole joint projects into it. I understand that, but my mission was to go and negotiate laws. But, you know, in an effort to move this forward, because time is running out, you know, I think this will be a good faith effort. They've looked at this. This is, these numbers were tentatively agreed to. It went back to both the commission and this board. But I guess that to sum all that up is we really need to get moving on this. And it appears at this point from the last conversation they had in a public meeting and what we decided here tonight, we got an opportunity to move this forward, or we got an opportunity to dig our heels in and ask for more. And that's going to be our decision tonight. That's really all all I can add to it.
Well, and I'll a little more, so y'all know that one of the requirements for lost is to review the 8 criteria.
Correct.
And staff spent a lot of time on those 8 criteria that was set in the handbook for that helps guide us in municipalities when we're talking about tax equity between municipalities and county governments. And so we did that, and staff spent a lot of time on it. So we went in there and basically, Jason, I mean, it was 70-30. I mean, that was what our staff's interpretation was, to achieve tax equity so that a citizen in the unincorporated county achieved the same level of benefit that a citizen in the incorporated city of Thomaston enjoys. That's what the percentage would take. So today, if you look at the percentage today, that the tax benefit that a citizen in the incorporated city gets over a counterpart in the unincorporated county, there's a significant difference. Is this the be all end all? In my opinion, no. Could we certainly make a case? So let me back up again. So this started on April 15th. That's when the board initiated the clock. So in 60 days, we should have had this done. So middle of August, we're finding ourselves that we're going to be at the 120 day. So it is getting close to crunch time, and we know, and just so everybody knows, that come the end of the year, without a negotiated agreement, this goes away. Lost goes away. There are other options out there that we talked about, and it's interesting that there are other communities across the state of Georgia that are having those same discussions. We mentioned homestead option sales tax, where we would give up this penny, and if the voters were inclined, voted, then that penny would then become a break for the property owners, correct?
Homesteaded property owners.
Homesteaded property owners, which would be significant, but there is a downside to it. We know that if you, but anyway, that businesses and people that own multiple properties and stuff like that would not enjoy the same benefits that penny would generate. Is that a good way to summarize that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Summarized.
So there are other options out there. We could sit back and do nothing, let this thing expire, and then go from there. But what we're talking about is roughly about $4 million a year currently, what that penny generates, of which we currently get 54%.
Correct.
So that's where you're at. So does this achieve tax equity? Not in my opinion. Is it closer? Yes, but that'll be for the and hopefully whoever's sitting up here where we're sitting here a decade from now, when this comes due again, maybe they can continue to bridge the gap.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that if and it sounds like after our last meeting with our two groups that were headed that way, I think the one positive legacy you leave is that 10 years ago it didn't go very smoothly, and it went fairly smoothly this time. So
I think you still got wounds from all that, don't you? Both of you.
Yes, it did not go.
So there's obviously there's value in setting precedent for the folks that follow us 10 years from now. So.
You know, and you know, as with any compromise, I mean, nobody should walk away from the table feeling like a winner. I don't feel like we're walking away feeling like a winner, that we've done, you know, we've achieved that tax equity that you know, that would really have taken 70% to narrow that margin. So, you know, I don't feel like a winner. I don't feel like a loser. I guess, and I can't speak for our counterparts and how they feel. And I mean, they've got to take this matter before themselves. I mean, what we had hoped was that we would have gotten this done, and that they would have had the opportunity to. I mean, these are basically their terms.
Yeah, their attorney drafted both.
Yeah,
both of the agreements.
That's to my question. So logistically, if we adopt this tonight, can you walk us through the steps of what we're hoping and intending to happen?
Certainly. So it really is as simple as to make sure the sales tax gets continued. The only thing that the Department of Revenue is interested in is getting that signed certificate. So what, you know, and I don't know if we have to provide copies of our minutes. I think we probably do. So that signed certificate with copies of our minutes, if we get that to DOR, I think by December 1, then the tax will continue in the percentage that we agreed upon. So that's the most important component. Obviously, the state doesn't care about the other parts of service delivery that we're negotiating. They're just wanting to know what percentages did they agree on.
So if we adopt it tonight, is because the city at their last meeting did a good faith approval or an adoption, I guess you'd say.
A head nod.
Yeah. Is our intentions for it to go back before them next week
Yes.
at their meeting and have them adopt it, and then it would be official?
That's right.
In a perfect world, that's what would happen, in our opinion. Now, I think there's been some discussion about, you know, that this requires because of the joint projects agreement, some sort of joint meeting to ratify this decision.
Potentially.
But I mean, I think Jason and I are of the opinion that by doing this in this form, they're really, I mean, it's you know, it's on the record, you know, so I think we can move on and go from there. And I'll state this, not necessarily for ours, because I'm pretty sure that all of us up here understand the reason lost is important to the community is it's used for the millage rollback rate. So without that, you know, if we rolled into 2023 without lost, then you negate any rollback. That money's gone and there's no rollbacks. So who picks up that portion? And that's the people that pay property taxes. So I think that's kind of the nuts and bolts of where we started, where we are, and what the consequences of you know, failing to act or, you know, not getting this done in a timely manner. You know, so
Mr. Chairman, just to summarize, the first agreement revises the road contract slightly to say that that payment of $150,000 is eliminated. The second agreement simply changes the sunset or the expiration date of the existing joint projects agreement to December 31. And then the third item is simply just the certificate.
okay.
Do we need motions on each
Well,
of these
that's where I was about to go with this. So if it pleases the board, we'll break this down and we can discuss this further in detail on each one of these items if the board's so inclined. But so taking it, item F is discussion and possible consideration on the amendment of the intergovernmental agreement dated 22 July 14, which memorialized the funding of the county road department as the road contract. You have that before you. Basically, to summarize, it retires the payment of the $150,000 a year that the city was providing the county. Does that pretty much sum it up, Chase?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with that, I'll ask, is there a motion on?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the amendment to the IGA dated the 22nd of July.
Okay. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion on this? I'll just say this, Jason did a great job, staff did a great job trying to provide an objective way of a rational way to assign taxes to roads that the city benefits from in the county. And it was like the major arterials, some of the connectors and stuff like that. Spent pretty better part of a half a day, I guess, doing a lot of that. So, so there was that, but, it was not well received down the hall. So that was one, I just state that because it was an alternative to just simply giving this $150,000 up. So is there any more discussion on this?
No.
So I hear no more discussion. I have a motion made and seconded to approve this intergovernmental agreement for the funding of the county road department known as the roads contract. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. Next is the First Amendment to the master agreement, which is commonly referred to as the Joint Projects Agreement. As we stated earlier, this basically retires this agreement, which is set to expire on August the 20th of 2023, next August. Basically what this does, it brings the term on the Joint Projects Agreement more in line with both the city and the county's budget cycle. Is that a good way to sum it up?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a motion on the...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Question. So this does not destroy the joint project?
No, sir.
That's all I wanted to know.
Well, basically, all this is doing is it's putting ourselves on the clock that we have until December 31st of this year, before we really can get into next fiscal year's budget, to hash out the terms of all joint projects.
Oh, as long as we don't hold the whole thing.
I think Commissioner Ellington said it. What'd you call it? We got a lot of water to haul.
We got a lot of water to carry. And I would like just to make a comment on it. This is gonna put we're in budget season. Time flies. It is gonna require some dedication and some, on this board's part and on the city council's part to make sure that we get this done. So I got a dental appointment or ingrown toenail, or
brain
I'm
surgery.
taking vacation.
Well,
We're not gonna get there that way.
well,
And I'm not saying that just to us, I'm saying that to them too. We gotta be dedicated to make this happen.
and I want everybody to understand the importance of the Joint Projects Agreement. There's always been talk about consolidating governments, city and county consolidation. Well, joint projects is the closest thing we have to a consolidated form of government, because it tells how we're going to deliver those services. So, it's a good step in that direction. Will we ever get there? Heaven only knows. But, this joint projects and folks from the city, our counterparts down the hall, if you're listening to me, we consider this to be a vital part of our collaborative effort. So, how we deliver these services, things like EMS, recreation, EMA, library, archives, those IDA. So, we're and this was your idea. So, you know, we need you to help carry the water, and we'll get it done. I have every confidence that we'll get it done. So it's just, for us, you know, we need our help in if we can come up with the terms. And then the lion's share, Mr. English, it's going to fall on y'all to help get this stuff drafted. And I would hope that we have this done before Thanksgiving. You know, staff didn't enjoy very much of a good holiday last year, working on an EMS contract, and I want them to have a better holiday season this year and not have to worry about budget or joint projects agreement stuff at the end of the year. So Jason, I'm teeing it up for you. I'm doing the best I can. And if you need anything as we go through this, if we do this, so let's find out if we're going to do this. So did I get a motion on this?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve item G, which is the memorializing the joint project agreement.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded on the change to the setting the term date on the joint projects agreement. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, and lastly, gentlemen, is the discussion and possible consideration of local option sales tax distribution certificate with the following schedule: Upson County 59.25%, City of Thomaston 39.21%, the City of Yatesville 1.54%. If no one has any questions for staff on that, I'll entertain a motion on this.
So move.
A motion to
adopt.
To approve?
Approve.
Okay, to approve the distribution schedule as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to approve the distribution schedule for local option sales tax as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, counterparts down the hall. Ball's in your court. Let's get it done. All right. Comments. Jason, I mean, and I'll just tee this up. We haven't talked about this. I'm sure you probably have it in your notes. There were a couple of comments tonight during the meeting about projects that we talked about at the last work session. You know, I don't know if you want to highlight that, and so we can kind of pitch that around. One was the Lincoln Park sanitation issue. You know, we talked about that at the work session.
Yes, yeah, and what we got was a quote. We've actually gone back to GFL at the board's direction from the work session, and they're going to get us an actual proposal for your consideration.
Okay, and just so the public understands, so we're asking for an actual proposal from them, but you know, one of the terms is that, you know, one of the items that's going to be required from us is that we have to make this compulsory, that everybody down there will have to sign up for this to drive that price down, so that they make that it becomes feasible for the company to go down and do this. And even if we do that, that there's no restriction on any, there's no prohibition from anybody burning their lawn debris. So to answer the lady's questions before during the comments is that we're still working on it. There are some challenges. It's not just about the dollar. I mean, you know, are we going to make this compulsory? And Mr. Wilder, I know you want to add to that.
Yeah, we want to make sure they understand this is for every resident in Lincoln Park, not just the one that signed the petition.
Right.
It's for every resident in Lincoln Park.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you know, and solid waste is an enterprise. It's not one that we use general fund revenue, tax money to subsidize. The people that have the service pay for the service. So that's the challenge. So anyway, And that, and then the Lincoln Park gym update, that was another item that we discussed at the work
Right, so-
session in great detail.
Right, and so just to clarify, we had our construction manager that's working on our judicial center project do a cost estimate based on input from the first town hall that we had. So when staff was down there taking notes about what essentially we wanted to try to achieve, we then gave those notes to our construction manager, and he put together essentially a budget. We haven't bid anything out, so I want to say that initial cost estimate based on what we gave him was $835,000. So we've instructed him to go back and run us a couple of other scenarios for estimates that we'll present when we get those again. But no, none of that work has gone out to bid, and it wouldn't unless the board authorizes us to do that. So
Well, and half of that cost was in the metal alone, correct?
replacing the metal sheeting on the outside of the building.
477,000.
Yeah.
So to the gentleman's question, comments before during comments, dollars to make it safe and operational. We're working on it. I mean, we're looking for that number, so there's the complete restoration. Then there's hopefully an alternative that would make it something more cost effective to at least consider, just to make it safe and operational. And anyway, that's where we're at on that.
And Mr. Chairman, like a lot of other things, we've seen some pretty heavy cost escalation in a lot of our projects in the last 4 months. So, as a matter of fact, the board, the staff had recommended to the board that we never, a couple of solicitations we didn't even complete, we actually just took them down because some of the vendors that were pre-qualified to bid on, say, our road construction project were saying that the prices were going to be well in excess of what we had budgeted. So it's the nature of the environment we're in currently. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have a not to exceed maximum on those projects because we didn't have them awarded. So,
right.
So anyway, so
and my last comment, and then I'll defer to the next person on the list. Getting back to our solid waste contract. Both the city and the county, I think within about the same year, in 2016, negotiated our arrangement with GFL then. So we're still essentially paying 2016 prices for our solid waste removal. Now, they have escalated some for a fuel surcharge, but that's the only thing built into their contract. So those contracts, both the city and the counties, are auto renewal, and I think we're blessed that GFL allowed it to auto renew because I know if we had to go back out to bid that service, my fear is that the price would escalate pretty heavily. So when you're talking about adding on to any service, it's you're obviously talking about $22, not $16. So in 2016, I don't know what diesel fuel was, but I'm sure it wasn't $4.50 a gallon.
Yeah.
50 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and while we're on projects, I was going to make this in my comments, but the Highline Broadband project, I think it'd be good to note for the people that weren't in attendance that I believe the date was the 1st of November. Is that correct? That the first resident may be live or hot?
Yes.
And they're starting from the west side of the county, coming in 74.
Correct. The visible construction, they said September 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2 years.
Well, less than 2 years, pretty much in that last schedule.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's the next thing. They're going to be coming back to us with kind of a phased approach of what areas they're going to tackle next. Not be able to pinpoint it down to the house, I don't believe, but we can at least know, okay, they're coming in 74, are they going south or are they going north? So we'll have a phased schedule coming to us.
And it sounds like Southern Rivers is making a lot of progress out there in your neck of the woods right?
Well, yeah, they've done down the road, they fiber's in. They haven't got it hooked to my house yet, but they got it.
And again, that's for Southern Rivers
Right.
energy customers only.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had public service telephone
Telephone.
offer an alternative down there.
Right. They are pretty much working as fast as they can, but they put it underground, and they are actually connecting in the house now. I don't know what the connect ratio is, but many homes in the Salem community has already been connected.
That's great news.
Oh, and if I may just add one thing, since Commissioner Watson had brought up the broadband. The way they're going to install this project, as it comes by your house, that they will lay the cable, light the cable, and install it to your home, and it's going to be this. It's going to be the same crew. It's not going to be one crew laying cable and then another contracted crew doing the installs. It's going to according to Highline, it's going to happen seamlessly. So the same crew that's actually doing the capital outlay in the right of way is going to be the same crew that's hooking your house up as they go. So I think they're obviously interested in getting paying customers as fast as possible. So.
Well, one question I had come up from a constituent was how would they get it to the house once it's in front of them? And what I was told, it's going to get to the house the same way your powers go into your house. So if it's above ground, they're going to run it on the poles. If it's below ground, they're going to run it below ground up to a certain feet.
Now, I can't believe I have to say this, but I can't believe they can hook up a house without powering up the line, because Southern River said, when they get the line, all sections on the pole, then light it up, then they can turn you on. So if they ain't lit the whole line, I don't know, we'll see.
Does you have anything else?
That is all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Jessica?
I have no.
Thank you. Mr. English?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wilder?
I have
Nothing?
Well, no, I don't have.
Mr. Jones?
I got three things. Appreciate everybody showing up and everybody that watched on YouTube. Can we get a sheriff deputy back?
Yes. I talked to the sheriff about that today.
Okay. We used to have a sheriff's deputy in here, they don't show up anymore. Then the next thing is just kudos to all the county employees. They do a tremendous job. I appreciate every one of them, especially, the two that sit down on that end of the table. And that's it.
Commissioner Watson?
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to bring up is, we were very fortunate today with the events at the school. I know a lot of us were probably frightened when we saw the calls and the texts that came in. So I'm glad it was definitely not as severe as it could have been. And, just commend the staff of the schools, EMS, our law enforcement. I think they stepped up and they were prepared if need be. So I'm thankful that it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Well, I want to kind of touch back to the GFL issue. I've had several calls over a several month period, and typically what I'm running into when I get these calls is people calling about bulk pickup. And yeah, I got the pamphlet and I tried to explain it. Brown goods. They got a weird definition of brown goods. Brown goods to me is a cardboard box. Maybe because it's just brown, but yeah, that's brown goods to me. But the situation I'm having is for example, you go out and you buy a new TV, and you get a 72-inch TV, because people ain't buying 25-inch TVs no more. I'm not sure you can get one, but you go out and buy one. You don't own a truck, and you got this box and this styrofoam stuff, and then you got to try to get it into your weekly can. And if you like I am at my house with just 3 people, well, 2 people now, but we fill up a trash can pretty quick, a bag a day. So the problem is when they get around Christmas time and stuff like that, when you got this cardboard, and now I'm not having people call me, well, hey, they won't pick up my 8-track tapes, or they won't pick up my paint cans. They're calling to say, hey, I got cardboard boxes, and they used to pick them up, and now they're not picking them up. Is there anything we can do to adjust that? I mean,
so.
because it's difficult to me to take a call from an elderly lady that doesn't own a pickup truck, that kids bought her a new TV, and yeah, I know I could go, hey, get your kids to take that box off, but she's got this box. She don't want to burn it. She just wants the box picked up on bulk pickup. Well, she sets it out by the road, and they calls them, and and she says, they ask her what she has, because I think that's policy now. And she says, I got 2 cardboard boxes. I got an Amazon box and a TV box. Well, if we don't pick those up, you're welcome to bring these out here. The lady doesn't even drive. So it's difficult. I don't know what we can do. I would just like to see us be able to review that a little bit, you know? The lady says, hey, I have to burn my yard waste, or I have to pay somebody to come haul it off. I have to, but she said she can deal with that. She said, but cardboard boxes, she didn't want to burn those cardboard boxes because she lives in a residential community, and we all know what happens. You burn a cardboard box, the ashes go up, they're hot, they land on somebody's house, it catches on fire, and then somebody's attorney's calling you saying you burnt the house up. But so, is there anything we can do about just getting cardboard boxes picked up?
I will talk to them.
And am I the only person that gets these calls?
No, you've been in my garage today?
I mean, everybody's buying a lot of stuff on Amazon, and we all do it. It's cheap. You buy something, it comes in a box. It may be big as this pen, but it comes in a box like this. It doesn't take long. Those things add up, and if you know, we take it for granted because I can throw it on my truck, and I can take it to where I work, and I can throw it in their trash can. I didn't say that, and it's okay. But think about that senior citizen that's out at their house. They don't drive anymore. They depend on other people for stuff, and they just want the box picked up. And normally, you know, and it's easy to say, hey, you can tear it up, put it in a box. Well, I don't feel comfortable telling a constituent that's 80 years old, you got to tear a box up and put it in the trash can. I don't.
Have they said why they wouldn't pick up cardboard?
I don't know.
Change in policy.
It's just a change in policy, and that change in policy caught me off guard because maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. But we need to review that to see if there's anything we can do to scale that back. They told her if she had a couch, she could put it out there and they'd be glad to pick it up. But they were not going to pick up a TV box with styrofoam. So that's one of the things I'm facing in my district, and I'm getting these calls. I'm representing people, so I promised them I'd bring it here and present it to the whole board in my comments. And that's all I got.
One of the things that's been in the news the last couple of days is we were notified by the chair of the Board of Tax Assessors and the chief assessor, chief appraiser, that the Department of Audits has deemed the digest to be out of compliance. They're saying that there are 97 other counties in the state of Georgia that are in a similar situation. We had a meeting today with those two and talked about course of action. I think, Jason, that you know, we're hitting you with this the first time publicly here, so we got some tasking for you. We need some help to figure out the course of action on this. Nobody's been able to show us the statute, code, rule, or whatever exactly how to appeal. You know, they're saying that we're being told that the only two entities that can appeal the DOA's assessment of the digest is the county commissioners and the Board of Education. For us, it doesn't affect us this year, but it will affect us next year. I would assume that with 97 other counties, there's a host of folks that are out there asking themselves the same questions if they haven't done so. So we just need to find out what that process is and decide if we're going to follow suit. That, you know, because we're being told, I haven't talked to anybody at the Board of Education, it hasn't been the subject of discussion, that they're going to appeal. I've heard that. I don't know that to be a fact. But it does affect, apparently it affects the Board of Education this year. So it doesn't affect us in the pocketbook this year, but it definitely could next year. It probably will affect us next year. So we just need some help on that, and I'm sure Jason can that's what I got.
Yeah.
This is uncharted waters for us, but there's 97 other counties out there in the same
I'm
boat.
sure this sort of line.
I'm sure there's a lot of people going to be paddling canoes in the same direction, so we just need to jump on board. And lastly, I'll say that hats off to the people that responded to the school today. That was like a punch in the gut when the word went out on what was going over there. I've got a high school freshman grandson over there, and it was like a punch in the gut. I also have a law enforcement son that I knew where he was when all that went down. So, and the folks that showed up out there, the parents, the concerned parents, I understand, but I'll tell you, it warmed my heart when I got there, and I got there pretty quick, that EMS, AmeriPro, was on scene, all 3 ambulances. So I looked up and I saw all 3 of our ambulances sitting there, and I thought, well, that's a good sign. They're up here, they're not down there. So, they were there, they were on spot, ready to respond as needed, and our local law enforcement officers, they were all over it. And, so I asked the community to follow suit. When you see those folks, thank them. Remember what they do for us. And I could sit up here and tell you, I was asked not to do this, and I haven't. Guys, look, hey, those guys do it for 2 reasons. One, we obviously pay them, and that is our responsibility to take care of those folks that do that job for us. And they do it for another reason. So, thank them when you see them. With that, any other by the ways? Appreciate everybody's time tonight. 1 hour and 22 minutes. Not bad for everything that we got done. And y'all take care. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. We're adjourned. Thank y'all.
Good to see you, Alan.
We're still live. I'm sorry. Oh.
Didn't do the
I didn't do it. I didn't read the statement. I'll have to do it at the next meeting.
He skipped that portion of it.
That statement I was supposed to read, I was supposed to come back to. It's part of the statement from the settlement agreement that I was supposed to read. I didn't do it. The statement that I was supposed to read as part of the settlement agreement. I didn't do that. We've already adjourned. Okay. Okay. All right.
You weren't gonna read the other one, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I apologize. I wanted to get